Good morning, everyone. Class is in session, and today we're going to talk about resources. Let's dive right in. Today is the first part of a multi-part series on what to use in the music classroom. I'm going to focus on general music, but this really could be used for any music classroom, whether it's choral, general, or instrumental. Today's topic is counting systems. Most likely, if you're already an established teacher, you have your own counting system that you use, but you may be new to teaching. Or perhaps you're looking for a new one. So this is going to be an unbiased guide to some options that you might consider. I'm going to be taking a lot of these from the blog Make Moments Matter, and I will put a link in the description for that. The first counting system that we're going to talk about is one that doesn't have any counting at all, and that is to use words. These might be words that kids already associate with something else, like fruits or animals or things like that. That way, they might be able to say the word in rhythm. A very common one is to use pizza toppings. For example, for a quarter note, you would use cheese. For eighth notes, you might use sausage. And for 16th notes, you might use pepperoni. You could also use pineapple and anchovy for some of the combined rhythms. This would be an ideal starting position for really young kids, kindergarten and first grade, that don't have any experience with quarter notes or eighth notes yet. However, for older kids that have a hard time speaking in rhythms already, this system might not work for them since they're not speaking in rhythms as it is. And not everyone uses the same cadence or the same emphasis on syllables. The next system we're going to talk about for counting is actual counting, with numbers this time. The number system is widely accepted in the US at the secondary level, and most musicians in instrumental settings in the United States have used this or a version of rhythmic counting and reading at some point of their musical training. This system is based on numbers and counting each of the main macro beats. For example, 4 quarter notes in 4/4 time would be counted as 1, 2, 3, 4. Subdivision of the beat are counted as and further subdivisions are e and So the first beat for 16th notes would be 1 e and or for 8th notes would be 1 and. Since this is widely used in the United States already, you've probably at least seen it in your life at some point. This might not be ideal for younger learners because not every symbol is associated with a name like we'll see in the next one. However, numbers does a nice job subdividing each beat and also opens the door for phrasing as well. The big takeaway is that numbers are great for the macro beat, maybe not so great for the micro beat. The next system we're going to talk about is the Kodai System. This system seems to be the most widespread rhythms syllable system in the United States and comes from the work and teachings of Kodai. I will do another video on Kodai later, and for Orff for that matter, but for those of you who don't know, Zoltan Kodai was a music educator, theorist, and composer who developed the Kodai system for teaching general music. There are many variations to the Kodai system, but rhythm counting that centers around ta, tt seems to be pretty widely used and accepted. Each quarter note is called ta, and eighth notes are called tt. Depending on where you are in the world, 16th notes can either be tiri tiri or tiki tiki, or even tika tika. It just kind of depends on what you're comfortable with. In the Kodai system, each symbol has its own sound, which might bode well for younger learners. Quarter notes are always ta, but eighth notes are t, and 16th notes are tiri or tika. Some would say that there is no internal consistency with the system. The biggest criticism I can find is that the Kodai system doesn't really have an accent on the macro beat, and so it might be hard to find for younger learners, which is why some other methods were developed on top of the Kodai system. The next one is the Gordon system. The Gordon system is very similar to the Kodai system. In fact, Edwin Gordon really based it off of the Kodai system and built upon it. In Gordon's approach, the beat is counted as do, and is subdivided as du-de, and then further subdivided as du-ta-de-ta. The Gordon system is considered easier to pronounce and goes well into instrumental education. And the real claim to fame for Gordon is in triple meter, how do-da-di is very easy to pronounce. However, if you're like me, du-ta-de-ta might be very difficult to pronounce. You might accidentally swing the 16th notes like I do. The next one is the Eastman Approach. The Eastman Approach kind of combines the number counting with the Gordon system. However, the Eastman one may not be ideal for teaching general music. A lot of it is because of the way things are pronounced. First of all, the triple meter has nothing to do with the duple meter and how it is pronounced. And the duple ones are kind of hard to pronounce as it is. The triple's not so bad. Numbers are used on the macro beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, just like in counting. However, to subdivide, you do 1 te, 2 te, 3 te, 4 te. And to further subdivide, it's 1 to teta, 2 to teta, 3 to teta, 4 to teta, which I find really hard to pronounce and even harder to keep straight. I tend to swing the 16th notes that way. But the triple doesn't make any sense with the Eastman system. 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, which is easy enough to pronounce there, but if you want to subdivide it, it's 1 lataleta, 2 lataleta, 3 lataleta, 4 lataleta, which I find doesn't make a lot of sense. The reason that I sound halfway competent with it is because it's what I had during undergrad, but don't ask me about fixed do, however. The last one we're going to talk about is the newcomer in the counting world, and that is Takadimi. I say newcomer, but it is 25 years old, so I don't know how new it actually is. Takadimi was developed by William Pelto and John W. White, as well as Richard Hoffman in 1996. Although it was created at Ithaca Conservatory in the United States, it is derived using traditions from South Indian music. In fact, the word Takademi comes from the classical South Indian Carnatic music. Takademi differentiates itself from this method by focusing the syllables on meter and on Western tonal rhythm. In the Takademi system, the beat is always voiced with ta. So ta is always on the downbeat. Quarter notes are ta by themselves. Eighth notes are ta-di. 16th notes are takadimi. And then the combinations are derived from there. In triple meter, the eighth note is takidu and can be subdivided further. With Takadimi, emphasis is put on the macro beat, and in many ways it relates to the work that Gordon and others did in their own systems, which makes sense because Gordon's system was only 3 years prior. It is similar to Gordon and Kodai for that matter because each symbol does get its own name. It is kind of different though because ta is always involved in the name. Sometimes ta can be replaced with chu-u for half notes or to-o-o-o for whole notes. But for the most part, ta is always where the beat is. One of the criticisms of Takadimi is that it is not expandable to upper level music classes. However, there are many school districts around mine that do use Takadimi at the high school level rather than the counting system, so I'm not sure how much weight that actually has. If you are a new music teacher and you're trying to figure out what method you should use in your classroom, I would suggest looking at what your students already know and building off of that. If they don't do a lot of rhythm in their classroom, there's nothing wrong with trying something brand new. However, if you're in a school district that primarily does one counting system like I am, then you do kind of have to stick with that one. However, perhaps maybe your school district is looking at other options. The thing that you want to consider the most is which rhythm system is going to be easier to say. For example, I probably wouldn't use Eastman for kindergartners, and I probably wouldn't use syllabic words for high schoolers. You want to use something that is right for what class you have. The other thing you want to consider is, what are you most comfortable with? Perhaps you grew up with the Kodai system. I myself had every system at some point, so do what's most comfortable to you. And if something isn't so comfortable to you, try it out, and if it doesn't work, it's fine. Kids are pretty malleable when it comes to teaching rhythms. In fact, if you want to try different ones, that kind of adds in different layers of how each rhythm can be done. For example, combining numbers and Takadimi is not necessarily a bad idea. Just some food for thought. I hope this was an easy rundown for you. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and click like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video. Class is dismissed.